Yo, how you doing? Mimosa. One of my favorite critiques of me is that I hold the microphone like a mimosa. Um, so specific. I love specificity. I got another Be Kind review happening, and I didn't expect this to happen this soon. I just did Jeff G's writings, and for the most part, I was going to stay away from wrestling stuff in the Be Kind reviews, but I don't know how else to categorize the thing that I'm going to do. I used to cover Drew Blood's writing. I miss the fact that he writes all the time. He's obviously not involved in wrestling anymore. Doesn't really care about most of it anymore from the sounds of it. He wrote this thing, and I wanted to take a look at it. I had contemplated a number of different forms with which to tackle this. But in the effort of speed, I'm just going to do a video. I was going to write a thing and then do a director's cut, but I decided not to go that route. So it's called Conventional Wisdom, the Temporary Return in Defense of Joseph Brock III, from Drew Blood. And there he is, great picture of him with the binoculars looking at the ring. Really good. I don't know who found that picture. It was a great choice. It's award seasons again, being done with all the nonsense. I had forgotten the madness until a Facebook link popped up about voting, and no, I didn't vote. And to be clear, I think it's a really strong batch of nominees in all categories. I can't say there is anyone that doesn't deserve to be nominated. I would agree with that. Now, of course, nominations and winning are two different things. Sure. I really only care about one category, Manager of the Year. To my delight, there's a whole bunch of guys nominated, but really only one deserves to win. I do love a strong choice. May already cast your vote, and if you didn't vote for Joseph Brock, then you are one of the buddy-only voters that keep Georgia wrestling in a constant state of arrested development. Just when I thought it was out, you keep pulling it back in. What a fallacious thing to say. So in other words, if we don't completely agree with your position that Joseph Brock, your friend, doesn't win, then they're one of the buddy-only voters. You who are the self-declared buddy of Joseph Brock, which is why you're writing this thing, but if you vote for one of the others, it's only because you're friends with them. And Georgia wrestling is in a constant state of arrested development because people you're friends with are the people that you favor. What an incredibly silly thing to start off your discussion with to try to convince people for your side. Terrible. Yeah, it's going to be pretty brutal. I'll just let you know that right now. The awards are for 2019, so I'm just going to get straight to the math. From December to June 2019, which is about the first half of the year, sure. A well-booked, emphasized, full-strength JB Enterprises averaged 402 fans per show. The show reports are out there. The numbers are there. Descriptions of crowd reactions for your reading pleasure. Now, certainly the show, performers, bookers, promoters, as a whole contributed that success. On the flip side, a de-emphasized, parentheses, Drew Bloodless JBE from June until now has passed the 300 mark just one time. That's no knock. It's respectable business, but it's with a neutered Joseph Brock. Wait, am I putting myself over? Of course. But I don't want an award. Parentheses, I told Larry he could give me the Rodney Dangerfield reward, no respect. More importantly, I'm putting over the power of an unleashed Joseph Brock III, the leader of JBE, the most consistently over performer in Southern Fried history. I know pre-meltdown Ashworth was called the face of Southern Fried for storyline reasons, but the true face of Southern Fried has always been Joseph Brock III. So what? Well, if the most over guy in the number 1A promotion in the state is a manager, I would suppose that would make him manager of the year. Maybe that's faulty logic. It most certainly is. Actually, there's you could break down any number of those things. Maybe it's just hard to hear. Joseph is my best friend, which is why I'm not voting for him or at all. Well, mainly because I just don't care about the rest. Again, another thing I think hurts the argument tremendously. So he doesn't care about wrestling. He doesn't care about the promotion that sent him off well. He doesn't care about the booker, who was one of the reasons that he continued to do wrestling. It's just about manager. pretty shocking, actually. It makes me kind of sad. I don't like the thought of Drew Blood leaving and being this kind of closed off and bitter. And I mean, I understand more than anybody about that, but wow. It just seems you're trying to appeal to voters and you're basically telling them none of them matter to you except for getting manager in. I'm not just voting for my buddy Dr. Joseph Brock III more than any performer in the state is a true character. The green jacket, glasses, and clip-on tires recognizable as any single half-ass brand in Georgia wrestling. That's a pretty big leap. I would say that Logan Creed's brand is far more recognizable. I would say Southern Honor as a promotion and a brand is more recognizable. I think, again, this is like tunnel vision echo chamber stuff. That's where he primarily worked, so that's what he sees, that Joseph Brock is the most visible, clearly known person in Georgia wrestling. I just don't think that's true. I really don't. I would say that, you know, even amongst managers, that Logan Chase is on par as far as recognizability. I would say that Ashton Starr, I would say Simon Sir. I don't know. I don't even know if he's top 20 in recognizability. The big lips, the messy, oily hair. He's a cartoon in the best sense of the word. He's instantly recognizable and repeatedly imitated. By whom? Who imitates Joseph Brock III? Who? The trick is that it comes off as completely natural. Every other manager just comes across as a guy pretending to be a wrestling manager. Again, I get that you got to go at the others, but are you kidding? I don't know a single person who works around or with Matt Hankins that goes, he's pretending to be a wrestling manager. He's actually a wrestling manager. He actually manages and maintains the guys that he's in charge of, and everybody knows it. He drives them to the show. He takes care of them. They travel everywhere together. Boom. Logan Chase, I see talk more about his guys online, who he specifically manages and is in charge of. And his guys talk about him more than anybody. It's weird. It's, again, I guess you can make these strong arguments. And again, I get it. Drew Blood, who by his own admission has no contact with any of this stuff. So he's got to make the strongest argument possible, but he's doing it by saying stuff that's just patently false. That's why it was really weird to read this thing, because so much of it is just complete horseshit. It completely shows that he really doesn't have any contact with anything. You don't actually expect that guy to be his character when you meet him backstage, but when you meet Joseph backstage, it's jarring. He's not a nerd. You can't believe that he's a normal guy, parentheses, sort of. I actually don't think Joseph is the most skilled heel mic guy. Boy, you want to talk about one of the two weakest arguments that he makes. But boy, he tries. Here we go. That has always been a sort of misguided measuring stick for managers. So to be good on the stick is a misguided standard for managers. What the fuck is this thing? I was going to rewrite this entire article, but I was going to argue about some wrestler being up for Wrestler of the Year that wasn't able to work in the ring. That was going to be this part of the thing when I rewrote it. And I was just like, I don't know, I actually think this person is a very good wrestler, has very good in-ring work. That's sort of a misguided measuring stick for wrestlers. I mean, certainly he's a great mic guy, parentheses, as a straight babyface commentator, he has no peer in the state. Again, completely ignorant. You know. Come on, the guys at Anarchy, it's just, oh my God, you know, Dylan Hales, oh my God, again, you can just declare things, but if you have no point of comparison, it just comes across as ignorant. But Hankins or good old Jeff G are probably heel orators. They're much, much better heel orators. It doesn't matter. Sure, you can just say that. Because these guys swallow up their charges. This is one of those things that I just think it's a wonderful thing to think. And again, it's just trying to play semantics or a technical sense of the word in order to try to frame your argument, but it really falls flat on every level. I went back and looked at who the wrestlers of the year were, and you know where most of them were? People that Jeff G managed. So the people that Jeff G managed were wrestlers of the year under his charge. Is that Jeff G swallowing up the people that he wrestled? On the contrary, right? He made them, helped frame them as the greatest, which is what managers are supposed to do. They're supposed to create the biggest, as a heel manager, you're supposed to create the biggest dragons possible to be slain. And Jeff G created these huge dragons that went on to make other people, right? The top baby faces go through Jeff G's guys. Jeff G, in a lot of ways, is the Bobby Heenan, right? The Bobby Heenan of Georgia wrestling in a lot of ways, or the Gary Hart of Georgia wrestling in a lot of ways. And his guys were the stars and the focal point of the promotion, as Joseph Brock's guys were. But here's the difference. Did Joseph Brock push any of his guys or frame them in such a way that they're the biggest stars on the biggest stages? No. What about this year? Is Hankins doing that? You tell me, is Undeniable the biggest part of certain cards? I don't know. Is Shane Marks Peach State champion under his charge? Yeah. Who under Joseph Brock's charge is a top guy? Logan Creed. And I say that, and again, do you think of Joseph Brock III as Logan Creed's manager? The answer is no. You think of Brooklyn Creed as his manager because there's such an ill fit. Because Logan Creed feels like a main event guy and Joseph Brock III does not. Is that deniable? Moving on. They become the focal, they meaning Jeff G or Matt Hankins, become the focal point of their awesome promos, become the focus. Again, they both managed wrestlers of the year. They manage the top guys in their promotions. Hankins, actually, in a brilliant move, as part of the great promo, which is considered the best promo that anybody has done in ring, and it was for Peach State, and it dragged them from crowds of below 100 to well over 100, back to getting close to the 200 where they were once at. Anarchy went from getting crowds of the 70s, and now they're back to strong crowds of between 120 to 200 every time. Those promotions have become stronger thanks to them. And by his own admission, Southern Fried went from 402 to the second half where they're getting 200. Period. Half. And he would defend it as, oh, because Joseph Brock is neutered. That none of it holds up. None of it makes sense. In fact, all this thing is doing so far is hurting Southern Fried's case for booker and promoter and promotion. They went from 400 to, you can try to juggle math all you want, they barely get crowds of 200. And even that's a stretch. So they went from 400 to 200. Same booker, same promoter, same promotion, same heel manager working up top. Half. And that was happening while Jacob Ashworth was still there and in good graces. The 200 thing. So what now? It's because Joseph Brock isn't unleashed? That's what we're going to say caused their crowds to get cut in half? Whereas Hankins, the promotions that he was a significant part of and contributes to behind the scenes quite a bit too, by the way, have gone from being C-level shows, Anarchy, Peach State, to shows that are getting decent crowds again. With him working up top, with him doing comedy matches, in a sense, but putting Crystal Rose over to... He helps make people. Who has Joseph Brock helped make lately? Jeff G made people. Hankins makes people. That's the job of a manager. And you do it through great promo work. And by his own admission, Drew Blood's own admission, Joseph Brock does not cut great promos. What the fuck are we even talking about here? He's completely and utterly selfless. So now the defense of he doesn't do a great promo is it's because he's so selfless, which is why he'll never make the case for himself to win, right? His only focus is the story, and he'll rise or fall for what best serves the angle and the match. Well, fall they have, crowd-wise, you know? Beyond that, he's the single most versatile performer in the state. Again, a total stretch. Because he's not a physical performer. He doesn't pay anything off in the ring, and the one time that he got color was in the back, and then they brought the blood out. I mean, it was clearly an attempt to match what Hankins was doing, and I'll say this for Logan Chase. He main evented at GPW and kept them afloat until the end. And then he jumped ship to the bigger promotion. And when everybody thought that he was going to fail, the charges that he gave him right away in Southern Honor, it completely worked. And, by the way, Southern Honor has maintained their crowd of 400, as opposed to being cut in half. And Logan Chase puts out promos, and Logan Chase does his thing, and he's got a brand that's very recognizable. Again, all these arguments you could apply to Logan Chase, and they would probably apply more to Logan Chase. You know? Brock is capable of absurd comedy. Again, that applies to every manager worth his salt, including Jeff G, honestly. And complete deviousness, all within the same show. He never compromises his character, nor do the shifts require any leaps of logic. It all fits. That applies to Hankins, that applies to Jeff G, that applies to Logan Chase, right? And it applies to the guy at WrestleMerica, from what I've heard. It's all natural and smooth. No other manager can open a show with complete comedy and close it with white-hot heat. Completely wrong. Logan Chase does it all the time. He can do it in the midst of a segment, and Logan Chase did it in the midst of a segment where he can be the butt of Ashton Starr's jokes, but then completely by the end of the segment, when his charge destroys Ashton Starr, he can completely get his heat back and then some. You can't be a fucking good manager and not be able to do these things. These things that Drew Blood are claiming are like, Joseph Brock is amazing because he does this. That's the job. And in fact, he, by his own admission, he said that Joseph Brock can't do the one thing that is a requirement of the job, which is a great fucking promo. Promo, short for promotion. If you're not able to truly promote your charge, then what are you doing? Yeah. Other candidates just can't swing it. They're limited by their characters. Again, it just shows how ignorant he is and how limited an access that he has and how much of an echo chamber that he's in. I get that you're going to be a homer for your guy, but none of this holds up. I could make a case that Drew Blood was the single biggest draw as a performer from 2018-2019. I've got the numbers. It's ridiculous. Of course, that's ludicrous, right? However, it wouldn't be completely true. You're right. Drew Blood isn't the only performer in those numbers. It was a team. Drew and Joseph and Jagged and Brian and... When Todd gave us the green light to main event, a fully loaded JBE versus Southern Fried Babyfaces drew historic crowds. For that promotion, not even. That promotion was doing that in the fucking Chris Nelms era. That's the truth. It wouldn't have been half as successful without Brock leading the charge. Group of the year? Now we only drew the biggest crowd in 2 decades. Again, super fallacious. There were other promotions that were drawing in 700 to 1,000 in the last decade. So, at one point, a quarter of the crowd was wearing green jackets. I'm sure that's not true. I'm sure that's not true. And again, what are we talking about? We're talking about 2019? No, we're not. We had fans paying $50 a show to have a poster naming JB Enterprises as a sponsor. Joseph has been sought out to do commercials for local businesses. Online radio shows have their biggest viewership when he co-hosts. He has fans from Germany sending him chocolates and candy. I can't speak for David Manders as I've never asked him this. But I bet if you get him off to the side, he would tell you his most profitable star has always been Joseph Brock III. Joseph provides true value. And again, this is just scattershotting a whole lot of things, right? If I want to say a bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with being a manager as proof that they should be manager of the year, then I would say, well, who's doing better production stuff for their promos than Matt Hankins? Who's a bigger story about a manager going from promotion to promotion than, you know, Logan Chase? Nobody. I understand that fans don't vote. Parentheses, don't agree but understand. You can disagree with that all you want. Fuck a fan. I'm already annoyed that, you know, security and all this other stuff for Southern Fried are trying to shoehorn their way in there because they're fans. They're fans with a shirt that says security. They're fans selling nachos instead of buying them. That doesn't make them wrestling people in my estimation, but that's a different debate. But what put guys without a spot at the cool kids table at a distinct disadvantage? The cool kids table, who would that be exactly? Again, it's again part of that Southern Fried, like, nobody respects us thing. Southern Fried had their year, and it was last year. And Joseph Brock benefited, let's be honest, from the fact that Jeff G was retired. And Matt Hankins hadn't caught a full head of steam yet as far as being a manager. And Logan Chase was the one who was toiling in relative obscurity because GPW was doing good stuff, but sort of out of the main eye. And let me say this, there was no me. There was no me actively putting stuff out there publicly. That's the main reason the awards are such a big deal this year. And all of the categories are so competitive. I'm a big part of that, if we're being honest here. In years past, the gold standards were things like, how many shows does he work? Yeah. What kind of, not cute promo can he cut? What kind of good promo can he cut? You can frame it with whatever words you want to put in there. Where's the great Joseph Brock promo? Where's the promo in the second half of the year that you conveniently ignore that has brought the people in? He's had them. There's been huge pushes to get people to these crowds. I've said many times how Southern Fried has done this good job of putting promos out there and all this kind of stuff. Though I would say that David Manders appears like he doesn't give half of a shit that he did at the first half. That's the main reason that the crowds are down. That and people are just kind of tired of the shit. And part of that probably falls on Joseph Brock and JB Enterprises not being able to reinvent themselves in ways that are interesting and good. And maybe being booked that way as well. Again, this thing does more to hurt Southern Fried's case for promotion, booker, promoter, and everything else, and promotion, than it does help Joseph Brock. The actual metric of putting asses in seats is disregarded because so few can actually do it. Joseph Brock III can, and he deserves your respect and vote. Well, they're at half the crowds that they once were. So what now? Now Ethel is calling me back to my game of checkers and glass of Ovaltine. I get the instinct to promote your guy. I get the instinct to go for Joseph Brock. But the reason that the arguments fall apart so easily for Drew Blood is because they're weak. I'm not going to have to advocate for who I think should win. I've said it more than a few times. And actually, I'm glad that Drew Blood wrote this for a lot of reasons. But one, it kind of made me realize, like, holy fuck, because I was advocating pretty hard for Todd as Booker of the Year. And now I kind of look and I go, like, fuck, maybe it is Dylan. And I go, in fact, it probably definitely is Dylan. Because it made me look. It's like Dylan helped make that Huck and Joe thing big. They obviously did their part and they've done great shit, but it's his videos about them that fucking made that angle red hot. What are the fucking hot angles involving Joseph Brock III right now? There aren't any. What are the hot angles involving fucking Hankins and his charges? Numerous in multiple promotions that are rising in crowd as opposed to sinking. Yes, Todd had to hold together the booking in a bad situation, but a bad situation it is. They're probably a 200 drawing promotion or less, if we're being honest with ourselves, when they were once, by Drew Blood's own admission, over 400. And now their average crowd is less than 200. Can you be Booker of the Year, Promoter of the Year, Promotion of the Year? Hell, Top Heel Manager of the Year, if that's the case. I think just hearing me say it like that gives you your answer. It makes me reconsider a bunch of stuff, actually, in the worst of ways, as far as Drew Blood's argument goes. I do love that he wrote it. I am sorry that he doesn't give a shit about any of the other awards. I thought that was really telling, too. He doesn't care that his guy Todd is up for Booker. He doesn't care about the promotion that sent him off. I wonder if there's something there where he's not happy with how things went and is just not saying it. Again, very interesting. And it's why I love writing. I think you get a lot more out of people writing stuff than just writing stuff in a more formal way like Drew Blood did, as opposed to just like a Facebook post or something like that. Anyway, let me get this bitch up. See the debate that it causes.